to reset up my OBS. So anyway, we'll swap over to the game. Now that we're loaded in properly. We got Neenja, the blue trunks, on Greeks, against Dimi, in the red, on Babylonians. We're here on equal footing, which is, if you come from AoE 2 or AoE 4, this is basically the equivalent of Arabia or Dry Arabia, with a relatively short rush distance between our players. Mid-sized map, no water, plenty of huntable food, plenty of berries scattered around, and a moderate amount of gold and stone. Reasonable amount of wood for a 1v1. And, you know, they're quite moderate to large sized clumps of trees, so you can sit on them for a little while. At the same time, it tends to be quite open on one or both sides of your base. So Dimi, it's a really nice natural wall off here for him. So that might come to be of importance if Neenja is going to try and use Sarasophoroi or Prodromos to harass. So Ninja's just going on the hunt at the moment. Bring back some sheep, some goats. Dimi, 2 ox carts. Ninja's only got that 1 storehouse, no hunting dogs yet, so Ninja's actually free to go for a delayed, but still semi-quick barrack start here. Not investing in a second storehouse, just the 1. Sending all the wood gatherers over there to gather it there, rather than around the town centre to begin with. Dimi might actually be able to steal all these goats. Ninja going to try and go for a double resource storehouse there. It's not 100% efficient for either, I don't think, but at the same time, it's really handy because it will save that 50 wood. Give them the flexibility of going for spears or hypaspis, or also being able to go straight for the town centre, depending on what Dimi's doing, because he's floating a bit of wood as well. Didn't invest in the barracks to start with, but at the same time, he's gathering a bit of wood through all this rather than gathering a lot of food. So he's sitting on a 200 wood bank. He's already got a house there. So it looks as though he's going to go for town centre. Both players have sort of kept their options open rather than gathering from the wood straight around the town centres. But also, Dimi's case, he did sacrifice 50 wood to get an ox cart initially. They really could have had quite a tidy reactive barracks set up. In the event the other one did go for an immediate barracks, I think they would have been pretty prepared to deal with it. Like this storehouse, I think Ninja could be a little bit closer there. You don't necessarily have to be right on top of the trees, because yes, it does actually block off getting to the trees behind it. So in theory, if you've got a higher worker count around the woodline, having it 1 tile back from the woodline, just like you would have, you know, an optimal storehouse for stone or gold gathering, like, you know, what Ninja's doing here, it's pretty solid for saving on that storehouse, but at the same time, it does have a little bit of walk time there. And Dimi, we're not really going to see, because we've got ox carts, but it's the same thing in principle. Really there, where it's standing is really where you'd have a storehouse on any other civ. So doing that on your woodline's good, but this might be slightly too far back. And then on top of that, these villagers are having a distance gather a little bit there. Obviously it's slightly easier for Dimi in a sense, because the ox carts are pretty smart units. They tend to cop a bad rap because of odd cases where they do sort of skits out, or when you finish off on a huntable, if there's another dead hunt nearby, like even this one here, if it was say here, that ox cart would see and beeline to it. The villagers won't, but the ox cart will. So that is something to keep in mind. If you start going, oh, where the hell have all my ox carts gone? Well, think about where is the next nearest hunt source if it's hunt ox carts that are going missing. So I can guarantee you they'll be at the next nearest hunt. So Neenja going for a second town centre. Dimi's going for pretty much the same opening here. So Dimi did go for hunting dogs Ninja skipped it, which I think he could look at adding it in nowish. Which might be handy for him. Yeah, he will look at doing so. Because he is gathering from both herdables and huntables, so the conservation in particular can be very handy. The bonus damage versus huntables, not so important, but the gathering rate also very tidy. Dimi's already got it, and he's going for handsaw now. Or Ninja already having taken handsaw, so they've basically taken those upgrades in reverse in terms of the position of them. The timing, you know, slightly different as well, favouring Dimi, but I think it's only slight. In fact, Ninja's going to have both finish, overall slightly quicker there. Bearing in mind, you know, when you've only got 2 or 3 villages on a resource, they're not going to pay back as quickly as if you've got 6, 8, 10. So no one's really started on any military yet. Dimi's going for a barracks. So only just finishing up now. Ninja, nothing on the defense yet. Here we go, gonna go for a range. I think it's that second villager in queue. It's on that now. Sometimes it's a little bit tight with your early game food income, just making sure you've got enough to have the second villager production straight off the bat. Considering you lock up villagers building the bloody town centre. While also trying to minimise any sort of bank. So Dimi at the moment, you see a little bit more gold. Here we go, he's starting to get some more gold villages up here. At the same time, he's got a little bit of food in the bank, a little bit of wood in the bank. But he could be looking at adding another building, so that's not so much of a problem. He has slightly overqueued on villages there. But Bab Eco is a bit weird because they've got comps that are extremely reliant on food and wood and really steer away from gold heavy armies in the early to mid game. Spearman Lance is probably your most gold heavy thing you can go for early on, and even then the spears it's equal, and I think Lances are what, 10 gold more expensive than food? 61 resource, 50 the other, is that right? Is that Raiders I'm thinking of? Anyway, so Dimi's starting to move out with the little army here. A bit of map control. Ninja in the meanwhile. Toxotes. Sari, the first Sari is actually going to start moving out on the map. Try and either track down this scout and start poking away at him, or just go straight for the hunt. Force your opponent to have to put whatever units they're starting to produce now on the defense. Just check the stone mine. There's nothing there. Doesn't have to worry about quick age 3 by his opponent. And this, I think this is nice for Ninja really, because the one bear is not going to take out the Toxotes. Pretty much free rain fire on Dimi's forces there. In fact, I think he really should be just chasing this, cleaning all that up. He's going to get the bowman there and the spears at least, and the bear is just going to have to wander off. Can't really do a lot without some support. And Ninja, scary all range composition. At the same time, if Dimi has a mix of slingers, lancers, and barrows, I think he should be well equipped. You're forcing Ninja to have to get barracks units out as well, get some spears, possibly Harpaspis depending on how much infantry the Babylonian has themselves. So Dimi in the garden, pretty near that town centre, surrounded by buildings. Good spot for it because it makes it sort of hard for your opponent to get to and to surround properly. But Dimi, bit of a pop lead overall, 49 villages to Ninja's 41. So Dimi and Ninja both housed at the moment, but Dimi at least is maintaining villager production, though he's slightly overqueued. Like he could cancel most of those and get some more military in. So neither is playing 100% optimally in terms of the actual macro output at the moment, but Dimi is overall up. Ninja desperately needs to get some of these houses up, and even though this is very resource efficient, time efficient, it's also going to mean because he's not committing multiple villagers to cramming up a house ASAP, it's going to mean Ninja's actually pop capped for quite a substantial amount of time. Dimi, in fact, getting pop capped again, but it's not actually really a problem. He's got military in queue. He does, again, have over-queued villagers. So this is a problem because it's actually meaning that villager is now actually effectively 5 population. Same with this one here, whereas Ninja, it's actually been more efficient in that regard, but at the same time, less actual villager production uptime means he's behind in villagers here. So Dimi is up 57 to 44, 58 to 44 at the moment, purely through just production. On top of that, he's going to have a slight advantage in his army overall here. So Ninja's working to close the gap in that regard. Hasn't done that poorly in terms of his military production, in fact. I think if he takes a nice engagement here, he could definitely clean up Dimi's army, but Dimi's really just staying put for the moment, just sending a couple of lancers out on patrol, otherwise keeping everything else together, which is a good thing. Oh, he's got a defensive force here, which is also pretty handy as long as this doesn't overextend. Dimi going to go to age 3. Ninja still on age 2 at the moment, but getting a number of upgrades. Has now added the barracks and is going to start producing a couple of spearmen. Getting spearman champion there. Dimi still just on the single garden, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if he's going to go for age 3. Relatively early, get the age 3 town center out and maybe get some armory upgrades. It can often be just as or more efficient than getting the gardens terribly early. I mean, in an ideal situation, you're going to get 4 gardens and town center out, you know, and be able to get away with the greed, but that's not going to happen every game. Ninja starting to put a bit of pressure on here, but just actually turn this into kills. Force his opponent to be housed or overproduce buildings in, you know, fear of his opponent's aggression. And, you know, just misjudge situations with retasking villagers. So Dimi, a huge amount of food in the bank for him at the moment. He is up in overall population. So 72 vills to 57. Ninja is actually having to clean up a couple of lancers in his base at the moment. There is spears on the fence here. Yeah, 72 to 56. He's just going to be able to clean that up, but he is also struggling for food eco a little. He's now up to 18 vills on food though, so he should be able to correct that in the next minute or so. He's overgathered on wood quite a bit, I think, here, unless he's intending to just spam a fuckload of towers and add, you know, production buildings all over the map just to really zone his opponent. I don't think he's actually really going to get through that wood bank anytime soon. So if he cuts his wood gathering a little bit, I think he's done now. He should be okay. So big fight going down, but there's a lot of slingers for Dimi, and these Saris, as long as they can keep outrunning these spears, force them to stay mobile, and not just pick off the Toxotes, they should be able to clean that up. Toxotes want to be focusing down these spears as well, which Ninja's able to just clean up the slinger ball at the moment. So the spears, not a good number of those. Now the Saris can actually help re-engage there. So that fight, Ninja with this mostly ranged comp is actually really making it work at the moment. Dimi using the slingers, but just not enough spears to get through all the Saris. And the slingers possibly needing to be microed onto the Toxotes a little better there, but I think he did quite a good job at that, considering. Just probably needed a couple more spears. Awesome lancers because they're good against both the units. They really forced the Greek to have to pump out more of their own spears. I mean, the bearers as well, they can tank a lot of the range damage, but at the same time, as much as they've got a multiplier against range, they're not terribly mobile. And I think they really need their champion upgrade to truly be able to just face tank a ranged death ball on even upgrades. So Ninja's able to go to age 3 here. He's actually pretty even in terms of the pop, considering he's down 28 villagers at the moment at 88 to 60. But at the same time, he's able to keep taking engagements with an even or bigger army size and keep getting, you know, little picks like this. Dimi's struggling to try and get resources from the outskirts of his base. A lot of villagers just being picked off for free there, but at the same time, there's still a gap of 19 eco pop, and there is still villagers past this army. So Dimi's just going to risk it for the biscuit, go for a pretty exposed market. But Ninja hasn't scouted it just yet. Hasn't seen any of this. He's been able to get these 2 hunts with relative ease. But this is a dangerous spot to be in. So Dimi, we're going to add some armories now. He's going to go up to 4 armories, which I don't generally like because it's a big stone investment to be able to take 4 upgrades at a single time. As much as it's quicker, it's going to mean you've got fuck all stone to actually put towards age 3 town center, age 3 fortresses, walls, all that sort of stuff. And having to repair any of that stuff too. And then if you're not training out of all 4 buildings at once, well, you might as well only have 3 or 2 or 1. So, fight going down here. 87 to 66 is the villager count, so army sizes are very similar at the moment. And our players, well, it looks as though Ninja's actually got both armor types and range damage from H2, while Dimi's got both damage upgrades. So Ninja's actually up an armory upgrade at the moment. And I think he would have only gone for, yeah, a single armory. He has gone for academy though, so he is going to have the benefit of faster research time and eventually faster train time with the upgrades that he can get from that. So but now he's overgathered on food, 3k food, needs to gather a bit more gold. Dimi, a bit more even in terms of the resources across the board. He's got a huge amount of wood gatherers, so he probably wants to send about 6 to 10 of them onto one of these stone mines so he can keep getting these upgrades and get some fortresses or some towers around the map, get a bit of map control, have some nice fallback points for his army, try and zone some resources. This is a weird spot for Ninja to try and fight. He doesn't have Sari Champ, so trying to hit over the top of the spears isn't going to work so well. Now, most of the Saris have been picked off. They're having to try and reintroduce themselves into the fight before all these Toxotes get finished off. Hoplites alongside the spears for Ninja here, but Dimi this time, his backline, his mixed range backline's not being broken. Those slingers pretty ineffective against everything other than Toxotes in smaller numbers, but extremely deadly against the Tox because they've got that wonderful 3 times bonus damage. On some of the other civs, I think it's 3.5 or 4 times. And now Dimi. H3 population pretty much maxed out, 98 eco pop, so he could possibly even afford to lose a little bit of that. He's still training caravans at the moment, but he's going to be pretty much locked up there. He could honestly go for some aggressive use of fortresses if he can just gather a bit more stone here, I think. Or Ninja, the big food bank, but needing to get a bit more gold and a bit more wood. Maybe also some more stone. Have to try and defend, but this is a rough comp to try and push terribly quickly with this much range in it. I mean, the bearers, quite nice to siege, but the rest of this army for the bad player, not quite able to tear through these buildings on their own. So Ninja, as much as this fight is not going well for him, if he can back it up a little bit, I think he'll be safe here, while Dimi gonna have to be cautious to not overextend. As much as these slingers, they are gonna do some great damage to the Tox though. So he's gonna relish in that as much as he can. He just needs to be careful to not lose them, and yeah, again, they just really tickle everything that's not ranged, so hoplites actually be quite hardy against those. But yeah, he's going to have to add more infantry and just more melee in general to really be able to push, or even add some siege workshops and get his siege towers here, Dimi, because otherwise it's going to be slow going. And Neenja, so there's plenty of resources as long as he can sit on a gold mine, which he's able to do so over here. As long as he can do that, he'll be able to print units for a little bit longer and stave off this push, I think. But Dimi, in the meanwhile, switching to very melee centric, even getting Royal Guard and Lancer. Already having produced a bunch of spears. Ninja's just spamming hoplites at the moment. So a couple of buildings are going to fall here, but until the town center actually goes, Neenja will hope that he can try and turn this around, although siege towers now for Dimi, so this will really up the ante here. Very expensive, but they're going to be able to tear through buildings extremely quickly. A couple of archers garrison, but may not be necessary. It is going to allow for it to have a ranged area attack though, so that can be lethal against the Toxotes. Neenja tapping out there, Dimi taking the game. Well, it's a really nice couple of fights there between our players, but I think the villager population really did favour Dimi there. Ninja just getting pop capped a couple more times than Dimi did. Just getting a little bit rough on that villager production. Dimi, I think, ultimately probably could have cut even here, possibly even here, and been pretty much right from there with army advantage and outright gathering advantage. At the same time, Neenja was quite active out on the map. Did have some nice fights early on that went his way. Yeah, guys, nice game between our players, and we've got another newbie community challenge matchup coming up, so we'll get to that in a moment.